Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, welcome to another Lemon Amiga play guide and review. This time we'll be taking a look at Dogs of War, produced in 1989 and released by Elite. On pressing fire, we can either play a one-player or a two-player game, so let's check out the one-player experience. The game opens with a map showing all 12 missions, and from here we can select which missions to play in which order. The missions with the lower price tag are usually easier, while the ones which offer a huge bounty are usually harder, require more money, more bullets, more firepower. Probably the hardest level in the game is this is Pakistan, and you will certainly need all the armour and bullets for that one, and we will be visiting Vietnam later on. The easiest is probably Australia there with a 5,000 reward, and Peru also with a 5,000 reward is relatively easy, so let's start with that one. Now, the player gets to choose their weaponry among a large selection of handguns, assault rifles, and even a minigun there. From here we can also collect grenades, and there are various missile launchers as well, a portable missile launcher, an anti-tank gun called the Maw, and there is also a flamethrower. So the hardest part is choosing our weapon, because this will dictate how far we get. Really, the only choice, apart from maybe the automatic machine gun, is this. This is the minigun. It has the furthest range there at 2,000 meters, and the firing rate in that thing is pretty meaty as well. So, in my view, there is no option but to select the minigun and to load that up with as many bullets as possible. By clicking on the view option, we can see the armor and the ammo that we've managed to collect so far, and yes, gas there for the flamer. I'd certainly not recommend anything except for the minigun, so let's jump in and check this game out. Dogs of War is an overhead shooting game, very similar to Who Dares Wins 2, and let's say it's Commando. Just like Commando, the aim is to take on guys and to blow as many of them as possible away, as we make our way from one side of a very long series of levels to the other. The first part is an ascending scrolling section, and you can see a graveyard there on the left hand side gives away the fact that this game is not easy. With the minigun, the player has the range and the rate to take on these guys, and the minigun makes sure the bullets will traverse the entire screen. If you pick up any of the other guns, the bullets will not traverse the entire screen. So the general assault rifle makes sure that the bullets travel maybe halfway on the screen, and the automatic general purpose machine gun will maybe travel 2/3, but only the minigun out of all the guns will actually travel the length of the screen, apart from the missiles, which we'll see later on. At the moment we can't afford any missiles. All we can do is wade into the action, all guns blazing, and take out those foes. These enemies are quite easy to beat, and the AI on offer is virtually non-existent. They all follow pre-patterned parallel tracks, and as long as we find those definitions, the hardest part is just missing those guys. One touch of an enemy will kill us, no matter if it's the enemy himself, his bullet, or a missile which happens to be travelling in our general direction. So one contact with any of these enemies means life over. You can see there we have 2 lives remaining from the 3, but at the beginning of the game, if we manage to make it to 10,000 points, the player will be awarded an extra life. For this reason, it is usually a good idea to begin on a level which is pretty hard, and then halfway through that level you will gain extra life, and that makes the job much easier. Nonetheless, because when we die we flash for a number of seconds, and that means we can get through these hard enemies. Pressing the control key, the shift key, or any of the numbers on the top row of the keyboard will switch our weapons, and you can see I'm using grenades to destroy these low-lying anti-personnel guns and this flamethrower. Let's not get too close to that thing because we only have a limited distance in which we can throw those grenades. They will travel virtually half the screen width, so if we are any closer to the object than that, we'll miss the object and it won't blow up. If we are too far away, we'll have to get closer to that. But yes, we can swap between weapons at any point, and lunging for the keyboard in this case is probably easier than having to hold down fire, because holding down fire will not only generate rapid fire, that will also lock our position, and we can virtually stand on the spot and rotate and fire around it. So on the later levels you'll see me locking into position, and well, you can see me doing it there actually. The levels make sure that the enemies sometimes come behind, so sometimes we have to lock our position, turn around and fire. There aren't too many enemies appearing from behind, mostly they will appear from the front and usually an inch above or below where they appeared before. So if we change our position, sometimes we can get rid of the bulk of those, and then it's on to another ascent. The trick to Dogs of War is to inch the character forward little by little to lure one or maybe two characters on the screen at any one time, and then you can follow those around the screen and leisurely blow them away. There are no time limits, so the player gets absolutely all the time in the world to accomplish that, and they will only get into difficulties if they run forward like I'm doing, and that will spawn many enemies to appear on screen from those hidden trigger points. The trick is obviously to clear all those on screen before we move forward, and as soon as we do move forward, that reveals more enemies. In this case we have revealed another anti-personnel gun which is firing in lots of different directions, and we have not picked up any rockets at this point because we simply could not afford those. The ammo there is going down, we have just about 1,000 bullets remaining, so rather than take out this gun, which I can't with weedy grenades, we'll have to avoid it and avoid these bullets. Let's see if we can sneak on in there and hope that those guys don't interfere with our escape route. Get rid of that guy above there and clear our way. Let's just be brave and run in there. Hopefully we can get away with lots of difficult maneuvers, and the game anticipates us running forward and having to deal with these things without much ammo. So yes, all sections of the game are possible to complete even if you don't have the firepower to do it. If you run forward like I'm doing at the moment, luring many enemies on the screen, of course that job will become harder, but sometimes in order to kill enemies you must step forward into their line of fire or to the side of those, and that inadvertently brings more enemies onto the screen. But all too soon the vertical levels are over and it's time to return to the horizontal. This time the horizontal level will move the opposite way to the way that we moved before, so that thing scrolls up there and you can anticipate that maneuver by standing on the opposite side. That will give us all the time in the world to lure more guys onto the screen, and yes, these guys are very similar to the level before. In fact, these horizontal sections are practically identical. As this game allows us to attempt any level in any order, I'd certainly recommend practicing these levels before you attempt them, and then you will get to know the tricks involved. Certainly a hard trick to master is accumulating enough weaponry to take on these guys. At the moment we only have enough grenades in the bag to accomplish this one mission, so let's not spoil it by wasting those grenades. If we do use up all those grenades, well, unfortunately we'll have to negotiate traps the hard way. There are no dead ends in this game, there are no hidden traps like fire pits or pits of death or spikes to fall into, there are no planes bombing us from the sky like Who Dares Wins 2, there are no boats to take on with grenades, nothing moves in an entirely different pattern to this, so the game certainly gets repetitive on these horizontal sections. But looking at the lives there, we are just about to approach the 10,000 barrier, and unfortunately the game does not give us any of the lives except the one at 10,000, and there are certainly no lives to pick up, there are no bonuses to pick up, no money to help us in the shop, no extra bullets, no health, no pickups whatsoever. There aren't any power-ups either. On screen you can see I've still not got any rockets to take down this heavy armaments, so I'm going to have to wade in and avoid those grenades. Sometimes you can make it, sometimes you can't. The enemies will always fire at all cover, so it is worth noting that if we get into trouble just like that, we can run away and fire wildly. Yes, sometimes these guys line up like a duck shoot, but look at that, we have reached the 10,000 and gained the extra life, which is terrific. As every level follows the same format, we do have a rough idea where we are along the level, even though we don't have a map. The mark that says Peru there, you can see on the player display, is absolutely useless. We do know that each level contains 4 vertical sections and 3 horizontal sections. So each level will scroll up, across, up, and across and up again, and then finally you will reach the end of the level. And as we have moved across a number of times already, twice in fact, we can look forward to another horizontal section and a vertical section to go. You may notice at this point that the enemies are actually coming very fast indeed, and if this is supposed to be the easiest level, 5,000 reward, it certainly isn't easy. And you can see there the edge of the play area means I cannot fire on the edge because I hold the gun on the right hand side. That, as we shall see later on, is kind of a bug, and some enemies do strafe the edge, and the only way you can kill them is diagonally. So diagonal shoot there, you can see, is vital, and mastering that technique is vital if you want to kill all the guys in the game. Every single guy gives us extra cash at the end of the level, so the more guys we bag, the better. There are 300 guys, 300 enemies there in Peru, so let's see how many we can collect as we move through a graveyard. The graphics again do change from level to level, stage to stage, and that is good to see, although they do appear rather samey in stages. On the Peru level at least, we are treated to stone flags there, which makes a nice effect as we move on to the horizontal section. There is definitely an art to Dogs of War, and on these horizontal sections the art is to step forward, lure those guys out and shoot those before they start to wander around the screen. They will hang around in a straight line for maybe 2 seconds, and in that 2 seconds you have that time to shoot them before they start to wander, and if they do, well, they might wander into you. I'd really like to get rid of this mine here, but unfortunately we have not got the grenades to spare at this point, and if you do choose Peru as your first level, I'd certainly recommend you do so, because that has the least heavy armaments in the game and requires the least rockets. If you choose any other level, then other levels require 4 or 5 rockets, and if you can't afford those from the menu, the best you can do is to buy these grenades and to avoid the rest. Every weapon and every bullet in the game can be avoided, and every enemy can be allowed off the edge of the screen to wander harmlessly away. So to a certain degree the player really does have full control of their environment, and as long as they choose their tactics well, and I'm luring guys onto the screen here because I have only 1 grenade left, choose their tactics well, then they can get through the level. In this case, I'm using my last grenade to blow up one of these odd anti-personnel guns, and hopefully we can time our attacks and wade into those. But look at that, enemies in the midst of those bullets make life hard work, and if we inch forward the screen will reveal those enemies, so it is a good idea to clear those before we try to avoid those bullets. And only just avoiding those guys, remember we cannot contact those guys, and sometimes we have to run away, and then we can reach the end of the level. Each stage will throw a number of tactics the players way for them to master, and even if those tactics are simply lining up enemies and gunning them away like the duck shoot, or whether to take on all these hordes of enemies like this, whether to run for cover and whether to run and take on those enemies head on. Sometimes it is possible to do a mixture of all three, and sometimes it's possible to hang back and let the enemies disappear. Yes, survivability is the key to this game, and as long as we survive, we score. If we do not survive, it's a very tight spot there, if we do not survive, we will not score, and well, look at that, we're down to 100 bullets. So let's save those bullets and get to the end of this level. Luckily, we are almost there. Just the last few barrages of enemies to go, and even plant life there makes a barrier between us and the near certain death. So if we hide behind those huge flowers there, we can allow them to soak up the bullets and the bombs, and we can just hide and hang back, pick off any stragglers. Finding a safe place on these levels is certainly a good idea, and if we can't, let them walk off the screen, and then we can walk ahead to the end. Unfortunately, we do not get an end of level boss, and if you're expecting a final fight, you can forget it. All we need to do is to walk into that thing, whatever it may be at the end of the mission, and we will get the credit. In this case, 2,582 bonus. To increase our chances in this game, it is preferable to start with a hard level. That means we can earn lots of cash early, and we can afford lots of missiles for lots of later missions. If we do not go for the hard missions, if we go for the easy ones first, then we will gain, well, a few thousand, maybe 5,000-6,000 for those easy missions, and that basically means we cannot afford to upgrade. I'm going to buy the low RPG and a few rockets for that thing, and the RPG will give us the best chance of getting rid of the heavy armaments, and yes, lots of bullets as well. Let's see what we've got. 15 and 4 RPGs, well, I think we can afford another RPG, and yes, some more bullets, and then let's get on to the level. So we have 3,053 bullets, we have 3 lives in the bank, and we also have 5 rockets and 15 grenades. That is the amount we'll need to complete this level, so let's go ahead and do that. It doesn't matter that we had 3 lives at the end of the last level, and that's because the game always gives us 3 lives to complete every level. There are no upgrades, as I say, no extra lives, so as long as we complete the previous level, we'll always have 3 lives going on to the next. Vietnam gives us another graphical change, and those huts there make a nice treat, but unfortunately we cannot wade through the water like Ikari warriors, chest deep and with bullets flying overhead. No, we have to avoid water in this game, and it comes to something when a muscle-bound hero can't step through a few inches of water. The enemies will try to push us into that corner, so we have to anticipate those tactics and not fall for that, and we can wait there for the enemies to appear all at once and take them on. Unfortunately, we cannot take on these heavy vehicles with bullets, no matter how much I fire into that thing, but we can use a missile. And we'll blow that thing up with a nice satisfying effect, and then remember to switch back to the gun before we get on with the action. Otherwise we'll find lives are lost. Look at that, no firing on the edge of the screen there. But the vehicles in this game are a problem for a whole different reason, because the player can get stuck on the sides and on the corners of those things, which means they are unable to turn around and fire. They get stuck, and you will see me attempting to do that. Getting stuck there means I cannot turn around, I cannot diagonally shoot those enemies, and avoiding that bullet there was absolutely miraculous. So avoid big targets like those vans and enemy troop carriers, because you will get stuck if you touch those, and that's another bug in the game. You could say that Dogs of War never gets boring because of all these enemies, and all these attack patterns are always different and varied. Yes, at the same time it is really repetitive because the enemies do not change, their attack patterns really in general do not change, and as long as you master the art of inching forward and then running to gun an enemy down, then that really is no problem. And these horizontal sections, we're going to skip those from now on because they really are repetitive. but at least we have some rockets, and these will certainly go to good use, especially against these flamethrowers. If an enemy wanders into these, they will fry with a very satisfying graphical effect, but unfortunately there are no enemies to lure out there, so I'm just going to have to get rid of those myself, and always switch back to the gun before attempting to take on another, because an enemy could just leap out of the side of the screen at any point, just like that. And if you still have the grenades or the rocket launcher handy, then you will miss those enemies. Those missiles will probably just pass straight through. So let's clear our way along this level, a bit nearer towards the exit, and let's just speed that footage up again, just to make our viewing progress a little quicker. You can see already the minigun has paid for itself, because the extended reach of that thing means we can destroy the enemies before their bullets get anywhere near us. And you might notice the enemy bullets always disappear halfway down the level, so as long as we shoot and then duck out again, the usual run and gun format, shoot and then dodge, and well, shooting and dodging is the art of this game. If you can do that, you can avoid the bullets and you can outrun the enemies. If you can't shoot and dodge, well, you're dead. This trick is a skill, and it is one worth mastering. Having done so, you can take on those enemies from any angle, and diagonal shots again are recommended, but sometimes you have to let the enemy just walk to you, and that saves a life. Here you can see another anti-personnel gun, and this one requires a hasty maneuver. We cannot attack this thing from the right because the rocket fires from our right shoulder. That means if we fired from here, we would simply miss the targets completely. So in order to destroy that thing, we must first of all lure the enemies onto the screen, and then second of all run like crazy through this gunfire. Having made it, we can now line up very easily with the object and blow it away. Turn to the gun and start firing. Each level takes around 15 to 18 minutes to complete, but if you move through it fairly quickly like I'm doing, I've managed to complete these levels in 13 minutes, but if you count that up with 12 levels in the game, that means a full game completion will take 2.5 hours. It is certainly a long time to play a game. Usually around 3.5, maybe even 4 hours to complete the entire game end to end is a more realistic option. After that time, the player's reflexes will have waned, and yes, you really do need fast reflexes in this game, no matter how far you get, no matter which level you are on. So let's just clear the last few enemies and return to yet another horizontal section. You can always tell when those are appearing because the graphics basically disappear on screen there. All you have to do is to remember which part of the level you are on, and to stand there on the left hand side of the screen for this section. If we stood on the right by mistake, then we'd get basically killed by all these guys. So if in doubt, stay in the middle of that screen as it scrolls, and then at least you won't get attacked. You will simply see those guys walking on from one side or the other. These mines pose absolutely no threat whatsoever, and it's only the big guns which need taking out. Luckily we have the rockets, so let's select that. Oh no, we appear to be out of rockets. Oh, what a shame. It looks like we're going to have to wade in and try our luck. Certainly with 3 lives on the go, that's not very hard. So let's walk in there and run like crazy. Let's fire and fire and fire again. And we have survived. It's as easy as that. I have to say, the gameplay reminds me more of the Who Dares Wins series on the Commodore 64, which was created by Steve Evans in 1985, rather than Commando. Yet, even in the Who Dares Wins games, the enemies would hide behind defences like this and throw grenades in our direction. They would change tactics, they would run away, they would alter their manoeuvres, so they had to attack them head on to force them to leave their defences. But in this game, the enemies do not make use of these defences, and these graphic walls you can see there are practically wasted, except from our point of view. We can hide in there, but the enemies do not make use of those, and that's another wasted opportunity. On top of the fact that the player virtually has to choose the minigun and virtually has to choose the levels in a particular order, that virtually gives away the fact that there are quite a few wasted opportunities in this game, and all those different bullets and weapons are virtually wasted in a game of this size. The player cannot save their progress at any point. There are no passwords, no options to save our stats or progress to disk at any point. So those 3 or 4 hours the player might spend completing this game is a long slog indeed, particularly because the action is so fast. You may play a game like Skyrim for 4 hours and not even complete one mission. So at least the games have certainly improved from that, but playing this for 3 hours at a constantly rapid rate, avoiding all these bullets, and well, sometimes you have to wade in there to survive, otherwise you are a sitting duck at the bottom of the level. So you can see me wading in there trying to get a few guys on the angles. So yes, the game does expect you to wade in, and well, if you had the weedy weapons right now with the limited range, you'd be certainly expected to wade in, otherwise you wouldn't hit anything. Having said that, at least for the first hour or so, the game is certainly fun enough to continue, and I really love the atmosphere and the music. The controls are absolutely spot on, and well, that breathes fire there, by the way. If you walk into that, just thought I'd show you this. And yes, if you walk just a step too far, you will not be able to destroy it. Luckily I took the opportunity to get the angle on that fire turret, blew it up. There are no way backs in this game. Certainly if you walk forward and miss something, there is no way back to clear it. That is bad in the fact that you can't destroy these major bonuses at the end, you have to destroy them first. But that is good in a way, because that means if there is anything firing at us from off screen, we can simply avoid that by running away. Running away is generally only an option on the horizontal sections. On these vertical sections there are very narrow entranceways there, so you'll see me going on the diagonal trying to shoot those guys, and being a bit trigger happy on the bridge there, trying to anticipate guys walking across that bridge. Sometimes when we have the ammo to spare there, 1,000 bullets remaining, it's worth spending a few, anticipating a few attacks, and that can produce a few early kills and make progress even easier. But bridges like that, you can expect a bottleneck. They will funnel us into the bottom corners. And look at this, there's a gun there, a sniper. Let's take on our grenades, because we cannot use the chain gun to blow him away. We have to use a grenade and virtually walk into that firepower in order to kill him. If we time that right, then that's great, we don't lose a life, but if we don't, well, we die. Apart from my trying to show you what fire looks like, we haven't lost any lives so far. And if you have 3 lives by the time you get to this point in any level, you can virtually write your ticket to the end. A few more shooting gallery idiots later, and we reach the final thing, which is yet another boss, which we cannot kill. We cannot fire at that thing, we just have to touch it, and that's level over. Three, 4, 7 guys killed there. That's a great revenge bonus, but out of 400 guys it means we missed 50 trying to get through that level. One of the easiest levels in the entire game is Canada, and for this we don't even need rockets or even any grenades to get through it, but because we have completed Vietnam, we certainly have the money to buy rockets and grenades. So with those items this should be a pushover. So let's first get some grenades, and let's buy a few rockets and spend the rest of the cash on infinite ammo. We still have 813 bullets from the last mission, which is terrific, and if we select auto fire we can actually use the auto fire to select lots of ammo together. There is absolutely no point selecting auto fire in the main game, because that will simply waste bullets, and that will mean we cannot lock ourselves into position and shoot diagonally so easily. You can see, despite the lack of variety of weapons that we've chosen, we can use the viewer to constantly remind ourselves of our stats and virtually wipe out our cash reserves. So in this level we have 5,500 bullets, 6 RPGs and 27 grenades. That should mean this level is short work. It starts off very easily. In fact, this level probably starts off one of the easiest of them all, and so I'm going to attempt to run through this a little bit quicker. But again, the art of luring one enemy onto the screen at once is still worth mastering, because that means you can just take those guys on, and shooting diagonally there means they sometimes run onto the screen. You have to be really fast to knock them out. As the levels progress, they will get harder and harder, and the game will expect you to wade into the action at certain points. So again, mastering these levels by experience does reward progress. Unfortunately, as I say, this game is just so damn long that using save states to save our progress would be an ideal option in this day and age, but I can't imagine completing this on a real Amiga, because after 3 hours my reactions on this game were shot. At this stage I'm just about to run for this cover, and I'm about to run in and get into that action, because even though there are no time limits in this game, again, destroying these guys, the more you destroy the better, so sometimes it's worth taking a few risks. Again, the graphics do vary even during the same level, and actually we are walking in the middle of a highway here with roads on either side. Unfortunately, there is no traffic and no moving vehicles on this section, even though we do get a number of jeeps and vehicles in other sections. There is unfortunately nothing to avoid, but we will see some of that later on. In the meantime, let's concentrate on another horizontal section and another excuse to use our grenades and our hard-fought missiles. In this section we find a very easy missile launcher there, and the missiles will traverse the length of the screen, so that's absolutely no problem. But you see that wreck there on the bottom of the screen? If you touch that, that will act very much like a sponge, and that will make us get stuck around that thing, very much like a vehicle. So precisely like vehicles, do not get stuck on things you've just blown up. As I say, there are one or two vehicles in this game, but sometimes they appear very quickly and you have seconds to blow them up. But just take a look at that. I blew the vehicle up, and well, my hair was on fire there for a second, and yet I did not lose a life. So that's yet another collision detection problem. If I stand on the left of that vehicle, I will get blown up, but I can virtually touch that vehicle on the right and survive. So collision detection has mixed opinions of its own rules on this game, and sometimes one rule doesn't stand for them all. The main rule is to try everything, especially these diagonal shots, and if you can let the enemy come to you, so much the better. Each one of these enemies will award us 50 points. The anti-personnel devices, which require grenades, and the flamers will give us 200 points each, and the vehicles will give us 1,000 points each. So blowing up a series of vehicles, or things which require missiles, like the grenade lobbing towers, each one of those will certainly rack up the score. The highest score in this game is probably somewhere around 400,000 points, and I personally have acquired maybe 250 of those, and I have certainly seen people getting into 370s, but any higher than that you must be a real master, a real pro to get anywhere near the 400,000 points, and well, I certainly haven't seen anybody achieve it. This level actually reminds me a little of LA SWAT, which was actually the very first computer game I ever saw on the Atari 800 XL computer in 1986. In LA SWAT there were roadblocks in the road, and if you got too close to those guys they would beat you over the head with a melee weapon. They would also lob grenades, there were snipers on the rooftops as well, crashed cars, even enemies to rescue, and damsels in distress. You could also rescue friendlies in Hooters Wins, and none of which have made it to Dogs of War, which I feel is a shame, and there are features which could have been packed into this game, which unfortunately they did not. On the upside, there is a great two-player mode, and clearing these levels with 2 players is certainly much easier than trying to do it on your own. That heavily contrasts with the horizontal sections, which are actually bland by comparison, with a solid grey boring background there. It It is very bland with a mine every so often. So in this situation, all we have to do is to blow these things up in a line, and we gain a line of 3 points, 200 points apiece there. But again, there are no real puzzles to explore, and well, we can launch a weapon by mistake there and waste a missile, which was probably crucial for later on. But apart from that, there are no real puzzles apart from buying enough weaponry in the first place. So I blew up a guy with a grenade there as well, but the grenades are always used with the hard weaponry, so there's no point wasting one of those, which makes, again, the grenades in combat practically useless. In fact, it would be great to try out the flamethrower and the assault rifle and even the pistol in this game, but those would be absolutely suicide, as we shall see later on. There is no way in the world the player could survive these levels with those weedy guns, and they would find progress impossible. You can see we are now halfway through this current level, and Canada is pretty easy, and we still have almost 4,000 bullets remaining. Notice the minigun can fire straight through the wall there, so any low walls, low fences or low bushes, that thing can fire straight through, again unlike every other gun. So the minigun is the one to get, and because we have so many bullets here, after I just lure out the final guys and clear my way, I'm actually going to rush in and to take on the enemy. Very lucky to survive there, one hit can kill us. Let's get those guys on the diagonal, see if we can accrue more kills. Again, we can take our time and wait for those guys to finish materializing, dispose of those before we move on. The rule to remember once again with these defences is if they are on the top half of the screen, they will be bombed, so you cannot run forward until they are at least halfway down the screen. You can see the bomber there bombing those defences. We cannot hide behind walls, because this is usually the place where the grenade lobbers first lob their grenades, so never push forward like that. Always walk forward into empty space if possible, and if we go for the first priority, i.e. the guys which are about to kill us, we can ignore the rest. They will walk off screen harmlessly if we should allow them to do so. So basically leaving guys alone sometimes is the best way to survive, and not pressing into that action. You can see we are heading towards a garden there with pretty flowers waiting to be trampled upon, and a few guys waiting to be mown down. So let's get stuck in there, let's be brave and quick on that trigger finger, get into those corners, and that's that point of the level over. Back to the familiarity horizontal section, and yes, let's speed this up because this is pretty repetitive and the levels don't change there. It's the same enemies, the same traps to blow up, and if you've blown up one, you've blown up them all. Sometimes you have to squeeze in, but this fire doesn't actually reach us, so that's pretty harmless. And so yes, this game is spoilt by the repetitive nature and the longness of this game. Yes, the actual game really does get boring after the first 6 or 7 levels, even though the player is thick with sweat from all this action. This is our final ascent in Canada, and we have over 3,000 bullets remaining, so let's waste no time, let's lay into those guys. See there, I am using spread fire. If we hold down fire and rotate the joystick, we can spread that thing in an arc, and we can shoot that thing in 3 or 4 different directions, so spread fire certainly helps there. Bang, 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 get stuck in, let's kill them all, kill them, die, die, die. Yes, you may be saying that quite often in this game, just as you're about to get killed. But this is the end of the level, and this guy who looks like a police officer, well, let's get it over. For our next mission, I'd recommend Australia, because Australia is very easy and we certainly have enough money to buy the weapons and the firepower to destroy Australia for a free level. But what I'm actually going to play is one of the hardest missions. This is England, and 10,000 credits if we manage to complete this, but unfortunately we are not. So let's just see what we have. Let's load up on the tools and supplies and get on in there. Let's check that out. For this mission I will have 5,000 rounds of ammo, 9 missiles and 29 grenades. That's probably my recommended allocation for these levels. Maybe 9 or 10 missiles or RPGs there, at least 30 grenades, maybe even 40 if you're sufficiently flush with that cash, and well, as many bullets as you can carry. Usually 3,000 is enough to complete a level, and any more than 5,000 allows us to spray and pray those guys away. So we have those bullets. Let's see how far we can get. England, as I say, is a very difficult, very tough level, and the enemy's trying to box us in there. They will funnel us in, come from behind, come from all angles, from the sides, and lob grenades too. So Steve back level layouts there ensure that everything is pretty tight in those corners. Dogs of War was produced and designed by Steve Back, who became an Amiga aficionado with games such as 1987's Battleships, Fright Night in '88, and Leatherneck, which was a similar game to this, which appeared in 1988. And Steve was aided in this case by Tim Coop, who provided the code for this game. He went on to work on Fire and Brimstone, the Ghosts and Goblins game, and the graphics were Chris Sorrell. He went on to create James Pond, of course, and the music, well, that was David Whittaker, who has massive heritage on the Amiga, such as APB, Alien Syndrome, Golden Axe, Lemmings 2, Speedball, and the theme for Shadow of the Beast. This game was originally supposed to be a follow-up to the Leatherneck series, and they tried to create the best Commando clone that they could. It's certainly better than Leatherneck, but it's certainly not the best Commando clone out there. The graphics are nicely drawn, but on the horizontal sections, the graphics in 1986's Gun Law, released for the Atari systems, was actually better drawn. On the surface, you can see those tile textures on the floor there, are certainly a step up from the 8-bit systems, of course, but underneath all of that, the enemies are pretty much the same, and you can see the background texture there pretty much dominates the screen, with no trees or grass or anything. So that is pretty much a lazy background texture. But there are good points and bad points in this game, lots and lots of levels, and it's certainly easy to die with all this action going on. If we die, we are invulnerable for a number of seconds, so we can run straight through that firepower. Unfortunately, if you miss one of those things, again, there is no way back. So that scrolls off, well, that's only worth 200 points, so there pretty much isn't any point bothering. The game is not very accessible to beginners. In fact, if the beginner chooses the wrong weapon, i.e. anything other than the minigun, they will find progress is slow and tedious. Lots of lives will be lost in a row, and even when I played this game for the very first time, I died within 10 seconds and wrote the whole game off as being unplayable. That is a shame, because Dogs of War is a tremendously playable game. Fast action, smooth scrolling, fast music, and adrenaline pumping sound effects there really make the dying worthwhile, as those guys repeatedly which actually encourages the player and is actually very fun. Yes, the player can have fun with this game if they are not concerned about their deaths and have died already, so that cushion has already been wiped away. The game will even run the player over if you aren't watching those actions closely enough, and there certainly isn't enough time to pull out a weapon and destroy those things quickly enough unless you have played this level and you can time those actions to perfection. So there are unfairnesses in this game. The enemies will crowd the player into the bottom corners and squeeze those players out unless you take those on directly, and if you can, you survive. If you can't, you die. Certain traps like this are infuriatingly difficult when hordes of people run onto the screen. can't destroy any of them, you just have to hang back and survive. And you can just tell the game here is luring me into an attack zone with these guys. I'm just going to have to be brave and see if I can survive the level there. That's included some kind of object there on the gravestone. I have no idea what it is, even with these slightly blown graphics, but nice touches there every now and again. Yet unfortunately we cannot wade through water or swamps, and you might think that bridge there is going to protect us against that swamp, but unfortunately it isn't, and the water there looks actually like a raised pile of square rock rather than water. And yes, we can walk straight over that water and it will have no effect. So when it comes to neat little tricks, it is a mixed bag. Certainly the playability and the control and the handling of this game is spot on. The controls are not laggy and the player does not feel like they are too slow in the action. In fact, we can outrun and outmaneuver these bullets. We can outpace actual high-speed bullets on the screen, so there is absolutely no way the player can say they are not fast enough. But on the downside, it does have its faults, hence the scores. Amiga gave this game 66%, Ace gave it virtually 65%, Amiga Action gave this 58%, and Amiga Power only gave the budget release 27%, claiming the game was only fractionally as enjoyable as Ikari Warriors and seemed dated. I'd give this game 65%. I love the music, I love the action, it's just the rest of the score is lost by the repetitiveness and the absolute uselessness of all the other weapons. You could see I didn't really need to run into that firepower in the gun emplacement there, but there is a host of other infuriating bugs, such as getting stuck in the scenery and getting stuck behind vehicles and that kind of thing. The game certainly is enjoyable and fun until the player starts to die, and then it becomes serious and infuriating. So, mixed bag there. I enjoy many things about this game, and I think they could have had a winner on their hands. It's just that as it stands, the one-player mode is okay, and the two-player mode is probably impossible if both players are luring extra guys onto the screen and the screen becomes action-packed. Meanwhile, back in England, we are rapidly approaching my doom, and this cemetery has been a killer of me on a number of occasions, and we aren't going to get past it this time either. I'd like to point out that I've enjoyed this playthrough and review so far, but pits of death or rooms of death such as this are something I don't really relish, and I don't think you can actually stand in a safe place on that level. For the last 10 minutes of this review, we'll take a look at a number of other levels, and for this I'll be using a number of save states I recorded specifically for this review. And so here we can see I am using all my energy and all my tactics to mow these guys down. There are some players who say that running into the action would be impossible, but using a few of these save states I'm going to show you that running into the action is not impossible, especially if you have plenty of bullets and the minigun. Running into the action is certainly possible, and I have completed these levels in under 13 minutes. The average time is about 15 minutes, and you could spend any amount of time, maybe even half an hour on these levels if you really wanted to. But you can see wading into the action there, it is an easy way to kill guys, and sometimes avoiding those bullets before they are fired is a way to get in there, and sometimes praying and spraying those guys out of action is the way to go. In built-up areas such as this, the same tactics apply, and getting in those diagonal shots is crucial because you can get any number of guys and get them off the screen as soon as they appear. So if you are spraying in all different directions, then just like this, you can take on those guys and take them off the screen pretty quickly. Unfortunately, yes, you can commit suicide using these actions, so this is not recommended. This is just to show you that the advanced player can really smash this level into a pulp. And it's certainly possible if you know where these enemies are going to come from, and if you don't collide with any of those by mistake. You may notice on certain sections your opponents will herd you into the bottom corners and try to funnel the action along avenues of play. If you anticipate those avenues and run out there and attack those, then you can anticipate the enemy's behaviour and you can knock them out. Again, I'm leaving those guys there to run away so that I can concentrate on the action and survive. It's great to see the occasional molehill and the flowers there, which add a little colour to these levels. And once again, it is entirely possible to take this thing down by strafing those bullets. You do not have to run into those paths of bullets, but I did so and it has proved possible. So yes, you can even run into lines of bullets and blow things away in the nick of time, as long as you perform those dodges. If we are too brave, we are going to die. Foolhardy behaviour is not rewarded in this game. I can't believe I walked onto that mine there. Am I blind or am I just useless? Run and gun, come on, let's get a move on. Make way for the fire trucks. Let's get through these guys. Die, 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 die. Die. Die! When we speed this action up, it sounds like rats. Ow, 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 ah. Maybe it sounds like lemmings there. Are there any prizes for guessing what this white square blob may be? Is it a pit? Is it a foam mattress? Is it a marshmallow square? I have no idea. Look at this. Gunning me down there. Gunning me down. Take on those guys. Die, die. Don't run me over. Boom. Let's get rid of it. I must attack you, but I'm so quick and I die. Ah! I am the muscle-bound hero. When I die, I explode like alien. Ah shit, take that. Die, die, take that. Let off some steam, Bennett. Die. Come on, we can still do it. Get to the chopper. We can make it. You must die. You must die. You must die, scum. Take this. Oh, I missed it. Come on. Get to the chopper. Faster, faster, faster. We need to get there. Faster. Take this. Die, enemy. Take this grenade, bang, you dead. Take this, die, scum. Oh shit, I'm pinned down. I cannot fight, I cannot get those guys. Take this grenade, eat lead. I'll be back right now. Take this, miss the game. Am I crap or what? You cannot defeat me. You cannot stop a robot. You cannot do it. Die, die. I am the master. I am the king. I am Rambo. See my muscles? They are huge. Better than Stallone. You back me into the corner. I get out. No problem. I defeat you. No problem. Oh shit, it's armored transport. I must destroy. I must destroy. I missed. I must destroy more weaponry, more vehicles, more die vehicle. You cannot defeat an RPG. Take this, the die, enemy vehicle. And yes, here we are, the commander. Die, I shoot you, commander, die. But no, I cannot. Damn. But I defeat him. I am stronger. I am harder. I will not be defeated. Even with a weedy pistol and 2,000 rounds of ammo, I will not be defeated. Let me get out there. I will kill all these guys. Okay, where are you? I am here. I am here. Where are you? Come and attack me. No, don't drive over me. Come and attack so I can kill you with this weedy pistol. Die. I can barely reach you. Oh shit. Die. I am walking through a greenhouse here. Maybe smoke some weed over here. Yes, that would help a lot. Die, enemy scum. Die. Let me get rid of you if I can reach with this weedy weapon. These bullets are shit. It's crap. I hate it. I'm overwhelmed here. Oh shit, I die. Take this and this and this. I will not be defeated. I will not be defeated. This body is immortal. You cannot defeat me. I am immortal. Even with this gun. Immortal. You cannot. Well, I am better than you. So, there you go. Thank you for this play guide and review to the Amiga game Dogs of War. And I'll be back with another play guide and review sometime soon. Thank you.